this is Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. I'm your host, Sean Kneese. My co-host Harrison isn't here tonight, but tonight I wanted to get into the topic of whether morality is something that's objectively can be objectively defined, or if it's like, or is it universal, or is it subjective based on the way you were raised, your own beliefs, or the society you were brought up in, and if there's like a universal right or wrong, or that's objective too, or if like there's cases where it is or it isn't, or it depends on the case. But and recently, like I guess I'm gonna use a video game like example because I got back into Oblivion recently, and there's this mod that was made called Ruin Tail's Tale, where the one character Ruin, he was a member. He's one of the lizard people of Blackmark. He was a part of this assassin's guild called the Shadow Scales, and like he had to do all these horrible things, and he was raised to be an assassin. And like, but according to his society, everything he did was right. And then you find him when he comes into Cyrodiil, which is like a whole different society and culture, and then he's thinking, well, now I'm seeing as I'm here that everything I was raised to believe is wrong, but when I was in my culture it was right, and the things that I was taught that were wrong are right now that I'm here, and that kind of got me thinking. Like I thought that was a very interesting thing to put into the game too, but like it's also in like the real world, like that was just a really interesting thing to think about, because I mean, it's like depending on where, even like different parts of the U.S., like you grow up in one part of the U.S. or a different part of the U.S., like you're around a totally different culture, like different values, like what's right or wrong, like what's even like what success is, or what it is to like just a lot of different things. So, is there any objective truth to any of that, or is it just subjective? Is it all in the mind? Is it something that even exists? And like, what is it to really be a good person? Like, is it standing for your own moral value, but like, where does your own moral value come from? Like, is it and I know sometimes people can break out of the way they were raised and kind of develop their own moral sense that doesn't necessarily go along with wherever they're raised to, and people can sometimes point out the wrongs of their own societies and make changes too. But I have a couple people who have joined me today to give their opinions on this topic, and I thought there's a lot we can get into with this. And I have Denis Sanchez, who's she's also the social media manager of this show, and she's she runs the Instagram page and everything. We recently kind of formed this into a team, and she's joining, and also Jonathan Jung. He's a friend of mine from way back, and I know he's I think he'd be an interesting. I thought he'd be an interesting guest to have with this, because I know over the years he's gone through, as I've known him, he's gone through. You've changed many different times with what your beliefs about spirituality and religion. That's kind of what we initially connected on. That I had, because I had an interest in Taoism and Hinduism and Buddhism, and we kind of connected on that way back. And I know you from when I first know you till now that your beliefs have changed a lot of times, and you've always been kind of discovering yourself with that. I feel like, or going on a journey with that. And also is my friend from improv. We used to do an improv team back in 2019 called Folks About the Town, improv comedy team. We used to perform every Sunday at the Triple Crown Theater, and then COVID kind of killed that. And I brought him along as well. I know he has a lot of good things to say as well. He's very martial arts is your main passion. I know you have a lot to say about like martial arts and mindfulness. Also, you talk a lot about like personal development and other things like that as well. So I guess maybe just have someone. I guess I'll just start with what are your views on, like, is there an objective right or wrong, or is it subjective?
Well, I don't know how to answer that because, I'm Latina and um oh, a successful Latina is religious, finish their school studies or whatever, gets married at 23 and has at least three to two kids, has their own cars and pays everything, like parent wise. And getting out of the whole traditional stuff, it's I don't know. I don't want to say it's like different or weird response to that because it's mostly like our grandfathers or whatever taught my parents and their parents how to think or be raised. So I don't know.
So I guess you didn't. Did you kind of break away? Is that? Well, I mean, we'll go back to the bit. I want to go around, but I guess did you break away from that? You feel, or did you kind of stick with a lot of the ways you were raised?
No, I break because I didn't want to. No, because I used to live there in Ecuador like for 10 years and seeing the different culture, let's say, here in the US and how other people think. It's I feel like it's like mentally healthier because hearing other people that you don't need a partner or you don't need to create a family to be successful. I feel like finding happiness in your place in this world, let's say, that's how you find your success. Not because following some religious belief or I don't know, like Hispanic culture or whatever is gonna define happiness. Like till this day, my dad keeps texting me or telling me that the only way that I'm gonna be happy and successful is university, skinny, finding someone and getting married in 2 or 3 years. So yeah, so I don't want to stay in that same circle like other Latinos stay. I want to be different and think outside of the box. So yeah.
And what about you, John? I know you were raised very religious, and then you kind of changed from your original beliefs. Well, I'll let you say.
So the question is there objective morality? Like something that's the main question, right?
Yeah.
Is there objective? I'd say yes and no. Me coming from a religious background, I want to say one thing, correct, kind of one thing that you said my beliefs have changed many times throughout years. I would say that will connect to my what I'm about to say will connect to the answer to your question, or as best as I can express it. My core beliefs have been the same probably since high school. That is the perennial philosophy. I know not everybody's going to agree with this or understand this, and that's fine. I'm not trying to convince anybody to my point of view or convert anybody, but my core belief is that everything is one. There's one underlying substance to all of reality. People call that God, but you could use different words too, life, or and to me, there are many religions that lead to the realization of that oneness, but you also don't need a religion to realize that oneness. I have practiced and studied very intensely Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and different variances of Christianity, as well as many other religions, at least flirting with them, so to speak. And but my core belief has been the same, that the divine, it's not a person, but it's the lifeblood of the universe, the life that maybe like an impersonal spirit that animates everything. It's really beyond personal or impersonal. It's something that's incomprehensible, but it's the substance of everything. We are one with it. We're a part of it. And there are many paths to it, whether you are calling it Christ or Allah or Shiva or whatever you want. That's been my core belief, and I still believe that. But my practices and the way I express that has changed many times drastically over time. So to someone on the outside of me who doesn't know me well, they may think that I'm changing my religion over and over and over again. Well, I'm just exploring I have been exploring all the different expressions. And I can get into more personal stuff, like what I'm exploring now and why, but that might not be relevant to the conversation. To answer the question,
you could, if you want, go a little bit into it, like if you think you could.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually been exploring mystical Christianity quite a bit. It's almost, for me, it's a way of honoring my ancestors and connecting with my culture, that is Western culture. Now, that's not to say that Christianity means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For a lot of different churches out there, it means what some churches, many of them maybe even, will define Christianity as our religion, our church is in, we have the answers, our interpretation of the Bible or whatever scriptures is correct. We have the correct belief and everybody else is wrong. And they are they're evil or delusional, but they're going to hell. And that's what, not all Christian churches, but there's a good number out there who teach and espouse such things. And they all, maybe not all of them, but many of them, fight against each other. No, we're right. No, we're right. No, we're right. For me, when I look at the New Testament, when I look at Jesus, when I see a message of universal love and compassion and forgiveness and goodness, and like just general, and that to me, the point of religion is not to escape earth, to go to somewhere else better when you die, but to realize the kingdom of heaven, so to speak, right here, right now. But how do you do that? What does that look like? It looks like by becoming a better person, a kinder person, a more loving person, a more respectful person, and working to make this world more heavenly, to make it better, to create more dignity and justice and peace and respectfulness, and making sure people have their needs met, making sure people are safe, making sure people are treated with dignity. That's what it looks like to me. And to me, that's how I see the teachings of Jesus. He said over and over again, the kingdom of God is here. It is here. It is within you. It's all around you. But you have to live it. These words don't mean anything if you don't realize that original goodness within yourself and express it into the world. Going back to, is there absolute truth, absolute morality? I think yes and no, but this is a huge discussion. It's like, to me, there is an in my opinion, in my view, there is an absolute non-physical, spiritual power or essence that exists, and it's the source of all goodness, love, and light and peace, and it's the substance of everything. And what's good is when you help others and help yourself, and you're good to others, and you're kind to others, and you're kind to yourself, respectful to others and respectful to yourself, and you help people and work to make the world a better place, or at least try not to hurt anybody and mind your own business. And what's bad is being selfish, being hateful, being addicted to anything. It's not necessarily going to hurt others to be addicted to television or necessarily even a minor drug, but it's not helping yourself. It's not the strongest version of yourself that you could be. When we get into details, it's almost like maybe there are ultimate goods and ultimate bads, but if you get into details, you might see that there's a contradiction for every single little thing. So I don't know. that's my view, and I know other people have different views, and I'm not gonna tell anybody. I'm not here to force my views upon anybody.
And Jelani, I guess, how were you raised, and what is your views about objective right or wrong?
I just want to understand like the overall I guess subject. So are we talking like strictly religious, or is it just like,
And not just religion, just
like when you say morality, do you mean like conscience? Like,
yeah. Just like what you believe.
because I can answer both. That's fine. I just want to like understand. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely feel like it's contextual. So yeah, there is objective right and wrong, but it does depend on the situation. Like for example, it's not right to steal. It's not right to harm anybody. Like you don't want to do that, but it's always good to help out others when they need it. Definitely, just being an upstanding person. But in terms of, well, I guess going to my background. So pretty much I grew up around a Christian kind of family. Like we're not overly religious. Like we're not by the book, Bible verses here and there. It's more so, we'll go to church like every Sunday, that sort of thing. And yeah, that's mostly on my dad's side. Like my mother's side is very, laid back, cool. We're not really, overly religious. We'll pray every now and again, but it's not like we're forcing everybody to, go to church and all that. It's more so my dad's side. But for me, it's very interesting because, my grandmother, my aunts, they're all like super religious. Like they'd go to church like every Sunday to this day, like every single week. For me, like when they brought me to church, I'm like I'm just there. I'm kind of bored. But it's like when you're a kid, when you're growing up, it's like you're just forced into it, and you're just like, okay, I'm not really understanding what's going on. I'm just here, okay, this is kind of boring. Growing up, like I do remember I had like a really bad breakup years ago, and I went to church, and it's different. Like when you're a kid versus an adult, like okay, now I can understand what's going on, what's being said, what the overall lesson is. And I realize, okay, religion is great. It's cool. Certainly not for everybody. But for me, I feel like if I'm going to like devote myself to this, I may as well be in it. Like I do understand with everyone else, like what they've shared, what they've been through. It's like, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to be 100% in it. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'll pray. To me, if I'm going to pray and everything, I want to do it from the heart. I really want to do it versus, oh, I don't want to go to hell. Like I'm praying because I want to be an upstanding person. I want to prove myself to God or whatever entity that's out there. Like I don't want to just do it just to get the benefits. Because in my eyes, that's the same as sinning. Like if I'm going to do it for gaining something when I'm not really in it, what's the point? And yeah, I do agree with the idea of looking around at different religions or different beliefs, just to see what you resonate with, and also understanding different cultures and how they practice their religious beliefs. So yeah, it's very interesting because I do have some friends who are Muslim, Jewish, different Catholic, Christian, and they practice other beliefs. So I listen into what they do, and it's kind of similar. I mean, I do agree with Jonathan. Like it is pretty similar, but the overall core idea is to be an upstanding person, treat others the way you want them to be treated, and yeah, I mean that's my philosophy too. It's like I know right from wrong, at least the standard version. Like, hey, don't harm anybody, help out others who want to be help out others where they're struggling, and yeah, it's.
I think you kind of.
That's how I see it, but I'm just not gonna from X, Y, and Z. Sorry.
Oh no, kind of, but now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just not gonna follow X, Y, and Z script. Okay, cool. So I'm not gonna follow X, Y, and Z scripture just because you got to do it. Like if the rule is, oh, you got to do it by the book, or else you're gonna go to hell. It's like, okay, like what am I gonna do with that? So I'd rather follow something when I know for sure my heart is in it. So that's my take on it.
And that kind of got me thinking of, when we make laws, like a lot of laws and the way morals are enforced in society is, if you do that, you'll be punished. If you do this, but that doesn't really do anything with the root of why people do it, like, why people steal, or why, and also I feel like, well, and this is a little bit different, but like when certain things are illegal, like drugs, prostitution, etc., like I feel like that makes it worse when it's illegal, because then people find like less. Then they find then that creates the crime, that kind of perpetuates the crime, because this is stuff that obviously, vice stuff people are going to do anyway. So just enforcing a law like, punishment, this is wrong, like I think that way can sometimes make it worse, because then people find illegal ways to do it. And also, like I was saying before, like if you're punishing someone, like that doesn't really fix anything, and that's not, if they're being a good person, it's not genuine. They're not genuinely like, I'm not gonna mistreat this person, or I'm not gonna kill this person, because most people aren't gonna kill someone, I don't think, but like I'm not gonna kill, because then I'll be in trouble because of the law. But then it's like, is that person really learning to be a better person through that, or is it just out of fear? Is it really? And I almost wonder sometimes if like just punishing criminals in general, it really does anything good, or if maybe people can be rehabilitated or learned, or we could get more to the root of why people would commit a crime in the first place. Like what causes someone to steal? Like, and is maybe somebody's doing something that's wrong, sometimes for a good reason. Maybe they'll steal because, they need to support their family, and, they're in a bad situation. They just do something out of desperation, or and the law isn't always right either. Sometimes people, like, I think you could break the law for a just reason. And I guess the civil rights movement's like one, like a lot of that, like, or the abolitionist movement, like that. It was legal to own slaves, but then it was illegal to like try to end like start a slave revolt and everything. But to me, that was the right thing to do. And so it's like, I don't know. I guess I made a lot of points with that, but I guess, like, I think like in that kind of relation, what you were saying about like God, like punishing, like you're going to be a good person, do all these things because you'll go to hell otherwise. Then none of it's genuine. Like the person didn't really learn to be a better person, like for the right reasons. It's just like out of fear. So like they didn't really change. They didn't really learn anything. I don't think that really makes society better in a real way. And I kind of think hell, if you look at it in a metaphorical way, because I kind of view the religions like as allegories, kind of like as metaphors rather than like a literal thing. And I kind of think you can view hell as the state you'll be in if you're not your God self, if you're not in touch with like your God essence. Then hell is kind of that negative state, like that state of mind. Like a heaven and hell, there's like state here, like within us, that's not. But then it's kind of like, is that all kind of part of the everything too? Like, is it the yin and the yang? Is it like you can't have the light without the darkness too? So that's something I kind of think about too. But if any of you want to elaborate, I know I said a lot. So
being the metaphor of the chaos if everything goes rampant. And it's funny, I've been thinking about this like recently. You hear stories about myths like, the Greek.
cut out.
Myths like Hercules and everybody.
I guess I have to send them the link. Well, if either of you want to continue in the meantime.
Mercury in retrograde. Um, I guess in regards to a lot of what you said hit home for me. Like you did say a lot, but in regards to the stuff about like being a good person in order to escape hell, and then in order to gain a reward, it's like it kind of it takes all the authenticity out of those good actions, out of that goodness. It's like if you're doing it to escape punishment or to reward, it's kind of still. It's like when if I help someone, like if I say, hey, I give a homeless person $1, theoretically, you know, I don't do it. Oh, this will get me into heaven, or oh, one less year in purgatory, you know. To me, it's like, no, I want this person to have $1 so they can buy themselves a second bottle of water, you know, because that's what I would want for me. And like, it's there's actually a Sufi. Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate, but kind of like what Jelani said. Am I saying his name right?
Yeah.
He said, if I pray, it's not to like get a benefit out of it. It's praying because just for the sake of praying. There's a saying in Sufi Islam, Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, that says, well, it's from a hadith. It says, "Oh God, if I worship you to get out of hell, then burn me in hell. And if I worship you to gain heaven, then exclude me from heaven. But if I worship you for the sake of your own beauty, please do not withhold from me your presence." You know, the idea is you're not, when you practice a good action or even a prayer, you're doing it for the joy of it in the moment, for the love, the peace. It's intrinsic, and in when you're doing something purely, like without the thought of self, it's like, when I say self, I mean ego. It's like, I don't know. That's the kind of thing that makes the world a better place. I mean, even if it's just your world in a given moment. And when I say a better place, I mean like a higher field. Heaven and hell, like those are big questions. You know, like heaven and hell are states of mind, or are they places after death? I have no idea. And that's someone who's been raised extremely religious and studied religion very intensely and still do all my life. I don't know. And I agree with you that heaven and hell are states of mind now, but what happens to the consciousness after the body dies, I don't know. I don't know. What about Hitler? You know, what about all these terrible dictators? What happens to them? For me, I do flirt with the idea of hell, but not as an eternal place, but as a place that, I don't know. This is just an opinion, but as a place that really bad people go there for, I don't know, 1,000 years, 100,000 years. But then there are some religions who will not say any of that. I've studied Christianity in many different forms. I've been absorbed in Islam for a long time, and they'll say, so Christians say, if you don't believe what we believe, if you don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God and that he died and resurrected, and you don't believe in the Trinity, then you're going to hell forever, no matter what you do. And then Muslims will say, if you don't believe that God is one, there is one God, not Trinity, but a single being, and that Muhammad is his prophet, then you're going, no matter how good you are, no matter what, you're going to hell forever, no matter when you die.
Yeah, well,
So
and then they also say, well, I know Christians do too, and I believe like fundamentalists or more conservative Muslims would say too, is that there's no such thing as a good person, that we're all kind of born with this original sin. I know that's fundamental, like evangelicals believe that, at least.
Different types of Christians believe that. I've never heard that within Islam. Not to get all theological and heady, but there's actually a doctrine, even within the more fundamental circles of Islam, When I say fundamental, I don't necessarily mean extremists, but people like conservative Muslims.
Yeah.
They all believe in something called fitra. Fitra means your original state, which means original goodness. That the baby is not evil or fallen or sinful, but born with goodness. And that, so that's. But in regards to like heaven and hell, like I don't know. I think they are states of mind here and now, depending on how you live and how you see your point of view in your mind, how you relate to the world through your mind, through your perceptions. But I just don't think there's any way of ultimately knowing what happens after we die, unless you just take it on faith, whether it's from a prophet or a saint, someone you regard as a saint. You're taking it on faith, and maybe you feel that you know on an intuitive level, but you don't know in the same way that I know that this lamp is like 4 feet tall. I can measure that. I can step onto a scale and I can measure my body. Oh, I weigh 100 and whatever pounds. I'm not going to say how much I weigh, but and there are things in this world that you can objectively define and measure and observe and perceive. But when it comes to things after death, there's no way of doing that. But one more point, I know I rant a lot, but one more point is that even though we don't know what happens when we die, there are things in this world that we directly experience every day that we cannot measure with science. For example, thought itself, thinking. What you can't see physically with your eyes, your thoughts. You can't hear them with your ears. You can't smell them, taste them, touch them. You can't weigh them or measure them, but you know they're happening. Same thing with your feelings and your emotions. You're experiencing them every moment. It's like there's either a subtle or an acute fluctuation of emotions and thoughts every moment of every day for most people. Unless you're a freaking Buddhist monk and you're just sitting there, But these are things I like to consider, that even though I can't measure these things with science, I know that they're happening. And that gives me hope that if I take the account of certain saints or holy people about things that happen when they die, or like what I'm saying is, for me, there's a place for faith and intuition in things that are not physical, and just me being aware of my own mind is evidence enough that there are things that we experience that are not can be experienced with the physical senses or measured by scientific instruments, but they're very real.
All right, and I don't know, John, Jelani, you were going into some stuff before you got cut off, and then I'll get Denis's thoughts. I just feel like, Jelani, you were saying something, and then you kind of...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm probably having some technical difficulties. I think I was just talking about, like myths and like other, I guess, gods and stuff.
Like Greek mythology.
Representing subconscious feelings that we have. I guess I can get a little personal. So lately I've been like having a lot of like rumination, a lot of negative thought loops. And it's interesting because, I'm sure everyone's had them at some point. And, linking things from scientific stuff, psychology, Greek, not Greek, I have Greek on the mind now, religion. Like looking at it's kind of similar. I wouldn't say it's all the same, but yeah, it kind of operates in a similar fashion. Religion, you have rumination, you have demons that you're trying to get over, take control of. With psychology, it's like, you have these like past, traumas or events that happened before, and you need to find the root cause of it. And yeah, with science, like, You have a
Oh man.
question, you have a hypothesis, you want to find out what the stuff like that. It's funny because I think about these things all the time, but I never really like put it in a way where I can explain it. So I know the way this is coming off is like off the cuff and not really not much thought to it, because I've never really sat down and actually explained it. It's all like in my head, and I'm trying to like in real time explain what's going on. But yeah, I forgot where I was going to go with that. But yeah, it's, I guess, going back to are we still on the topic of like morality, religion,
Yeah, and
and
then
stuff
I,
like
I
that?
think I went a bit into like how punishment, like doing good because of fear of punishment, isn't really a genuine good. It doesn't really help the person be better or anything. And I don't think it helps. And a punishment actually, I think, can make someone a worse criminal too. Like, you know, you go into prison for like a smaller crime, then after a while being in prison, you're going to commit worse crimes, and then you're likely going to go back into crime because you got this record and you can't get a job, and it just perpetuates more of the same. I think punishment. But
Yeah,
what
it can be contextual, and there are, I've heard this term being thrown around. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go on.
No, I was just gonna say. No, I was just gonna say. I heard this term being thrown around. Like some people are born good, some people are born, without compassion or evil in a certain sense, and then there are people in the middle where it's like nature versus nurture type of thing. So it's interesting how, and you did say earlier, like, oh, there are circumstances where you're going to have to break the law. There's no way around it. And some people that do, and they just don't care about the repercussions, they'll do it anyway. And, there are certain people that are born without empathy. They just can't do it. And, some people actually have to, like, physically, like, actually, like, okay, I'm doing something wrong, even though I don't feel it. Like, I've heard stories about that, how some people who were born without empathy, they're like, I don't really care if I'm messing with someone's life. Like I know like logically it's wrong, but I don't feel it. And they've had to learn, like, okay, they have to identify it. Like they do. I don't think they feel guilt. Like I do. It was like some YouTube video I was watching, but like they didn't feel guilt, but they have to actively, like, okay, this is actually wrong. Like they don't feel the emotion, but they logically are like, I got to do something right, and they do whatever. And of course, the people that like, oh yeah, this is wrong. I can't do this. I feel really bad. So yeah, going back to the topic, it's like, I guess it just depends on the person. It's all contextual. Like this, I feel like everyone's different. Everyone's born differently. No one's the same. So it's kind of hard to say, is there an objective good versus evil? Because it's just, we're not robots. We're just, everyone's different. Everyone's born. All I can say is everyone's born different. Everyone has different circumstances, nature versus nurture, or is it really, you're born this way, you're born that way. So there's really, at least in my opinion, there's really no way to explain it, because the possibilities are infinite. That's my take on it.
Oh, now Denise. Let's.
I'm here. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. This topic is like, because I've thought of this, the whole like hell and heaven thing. I feel like back then everyone was praying and do good deeds just to get a easy way to heaven. And what I personally think, I do believe in hell, I do believe in heaven, but I also believe in afterlife. I don't know if you guys do, but I do, and I believe that there's three places: heaven, hell, and lesson. So let's say in my past life, I was a bad person. and I didn't learn my lesson, or there's something that I need to learn before I go to heaven. And then that's why I'm still here on earth. My spirit is still here on earth because I didn't learn my lesson. And if I do, that's my ticket to go to heaven. But if I do something maliciously, that's how I go to hell. That's my thought of it. And there's certain people, and I've heard that they believe that this is like earth, like right now, this is hell. Like all of us are right now in hell. That's why everything is so complicated. That's everything. There's a lot of mental like issues, economic, blah 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 blah. So, and what you were talking about, the good and bad, and how do we know that we're doing good, or if we do something good, and then to do, with good intent, we do something bad. I feel like it all depends for what it's for, because I don't believe in the whole church in the Bible, because I feel like that's like human stuff, like human created that, not God or whoever's looking out for us or whatever. I feel like they or whatever can see our attentions, not attentions. What's it called?
Yeah.
Attentions, right?
Intentions.
I don't know English.
Intentions, or yeah.
There we go. Thank you. What he said. I feel like that certain something or someone knows when we want to do good for someone else or for us, for for a good purpose, not for like a malicious purpose, or I want to see this person cry blood because I don't like them, so yeah, that's my put on it. I don't know what else to say. I'm muting. Thank you.
Yeah, I do agree that you're here for a reason. It could be to maybe inspire someone to do a certain task, and then that's it, or learn a lesson. Like, I do feel like that's definitely a thing, and I guess that kind of you've all had like deja vu, like, oh, I've experienced this before, and it's since this before. This feels kind of familiar. So yeah, I do agree. Who knows? We could have like multiple lives in the past. Who knows? Yeah, as far as like if we're on hell, well, if we're in hell, if we're living it, I know. I think I don't know what the theory is, but like, oh, there's like different dimensions, like different planes. Like, for example, we're in a 3D plane right now. I've heard 4D and all these different like higher I guess planes. And it's interesting how I don't remember specifically what the quote, but like for someone to lay eyes upon God, it's like it's something beyond human comprehension. And if you think scientifically, I think I was watching. I think they were trying to explain like 4D, not fully how it works. But if something is like that complex on a like one level higher than our plane, imagine what's beyond that. Like, what's beyond human comprehension. Like, there are certain things that can't be explained with modern science. There's some particles we can't even see, some frequencies we can't even hear. Humans, like, we don't have certain like capabilities. So imagine what's around us that we can't see, hear, or even explain. So that's one thing I've been thinking about.
And maybe could two people's rights be equally right? It's just that it's right for them. but they're both, neither one's wrong. Neither truth is wrong. It's just that it's different truths. Like it's real for like, I was thinking, I guess the example I thought of is, maybe somebody wants, it doesn't like, it's against like, I guess, materialism, or they kind of want to maybe change things from like a grassroots perspective, or they think that there should be more of a balance of wealth, and there shouldn't be like, a billionaires and like, then people like the really poor, and that there needs to be kind of that it's like it's wrong to be a billionaire and everything. But then there could be somebody who's like, I'm going to go make a difference and change the world by being a billionaire and doing this. And it's like, both perspectives are kind of right for the person. But then it's like, which one's the objective, right or wrong with that? That's what I'm trying. It looks like John has something. Yeah.
Well, I have been a giant Bernie Sanders fan for a long time, and I've looked into a lot of his things that he said, and I really did research on the things that he would touch upon in his speeches. If you have $1 billion, I don't know if this is currently true, but maybe 10 years, let's say 6 years ago. Let me put it this way. There's a certain amount of money. I don't know what it is, but there's a certain amount of money that it is literally, you have to be exploiting someone somewhere to have that certain amount of money.
Yeah.
You can't have, there's a mathematical equation that shows you have to have, there's a certain amount, it's really high, that if you have that amount of money, you're exploiting someone somewhere, whether you're just not paying them enough and overworking them, or someone in another country through outsourcing and poor work conditions, or pushing out American workers when you have your job and your business on American soil. That's, I'm not a sociologist, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not an economist, but I've heard that it actually, you are going to be hurting someone after a certain amount of money that you have acquired for yourself. So that's my take on what your question that you just asked.
Yeah. And I guess, so I guess you think maybe the people who are like billionaire philanthropists and stuff, you think if they really cared, they'd be giving like more of their money away. They'd be, because I guess it's, you're saying that they're living on way more than they need to even live a comfortable lifestyle. Like they don't even need, like they can't even spend all the money they have. And if they really wanted to make a difference, they'd use it even more. They'd give away even more.
In 2013, Warren Buffett was worth $63 billion, and he gave away $40 billion to charity, which is pretty awesome. So I don't know, but at the same time, just to make that amount of money, like there's what I said, it's like you're going to be exploiting someone somewhere.
Yeah.
But the whole, what's a deeper question about right and wrong in regards to this situation is the system underneath it that causes it to be. That is the unfettered capitalist system without checks and balances, which our government pretends to have, in my opinion, but doesn't in a lot of ways because they're bought out by big money. It's the whole system that would have to change in order to fix. These are such giant questions. I don't feel qualified to answer them.
Well, either of you have a different view on this, or something else to add, or
the whole I don't know. That's complicated what you said. Like, I don't think. Okay, so when you said if the rich person has a ton of money and he's a good person for giving,
or
money
in
to
their
charity.
mind, you think they're gonna change? They're getting rich to make a difference and change the world for the better, and then somebody else thinks, oh no, I want to, that that's wrong to have that much money, and I'm gonna change the world through a more grassroots way, and there shouldn't be, you know, and they're both thinking they're bettering the world, and they both thinking that they want the same thing, but in their minds, like they're at odds with each other. Like, is there which one's right, which one's wrong? Are both right, or is there like an objective? One's wrong, one's right.
I think either or. It just, like I said, it depends. Like, what is the purpose? How are you gonna get there? And
Oh, cut out a bit. Wait.
or
Oh yeah, well you got it. It said, "What is the purpose?" Yeah, that's where it cut out. Just it.
yeah, it depends. What is the goal? How are they gonna get to the goal? The thing is, if they want to change the world or whatever, the idea is how, right? And why how is like, if they're not gonna exploit anyone by changing the world, because to be honest, in the world that we live in, to help someone else needs to suffer. Like, if I don't make a lot of money. If I want to help right now someone to pay their rent, I have to, let's say, go without rent either. You know? You know what I'm trying to say? I don't
Yeah.
know. Okay. So basically, I feel like whatever you do right now in this world, it doesn't matter, because if you do good for one person, it's going to be bad for the other person. So either branch that we're talking about, who is right, who is wrong, I think either or, it doesn't matter. If you are doing with good intentions, if you're doing everything like by heart, I think that's, you know, good. But in the end, someone is going to get hurt and someone's going to suffer.
And Jelani, what do you have to? Do you have anything to add to this? Or?
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a give and take situation, especially when we're making change, like huge changes. Like I think you said, like was it farming? I know it had to do with, like, I guess, agriculture. Like, you have to take a certain thing away. I may be misquoting you, but definitely it sounds like an equivalent exchange, so to speak, where it's like, okay, if one thing needs to be done, one thing needs to be sacrificed. And yeah, it just depends on, what needs to be done. Like, hey, for example, like you're in a foreign country, like, oh, I want to build adequate, I don't know, homes for the homeless. Like, where's the money coming from? Like, what do they have to do physically in, like, is it legal to do certain things, certain practices? So it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I want to do this, but what are the consequences of trying to get that done? Is, I guess, what I'm trying to convince.
Yeah. Well, some people think that the end justifies the means, and that that they're ready to do. They're going to do bad because it's going to lead to good. Like, if people have to die for this to happen, at least this cause is done.
Like COVID, because the theory behind COVID is like they already had the like, not the vaccine, the virus in like a jar or something, and since the world was like overpopulating, they set that free to a lot of people to
I'm not sure.
die. Well, that's one of the theories, though. That's one of the theories.
Yeah. Oh, the Illuminati. You mean like the Illuminati population?
Yeah, yeah. Like that's one of the theories I heard.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I believe that. I mean, I used to be more like believe like the conspiracy. I mean, I definitely think there's shady stuff that the people, the most powerful, do, and obviously there's we already know about like Epstein, all that, and like But I think a lot of it's like there's a lot we know that I don't know if like there's a point in putting in theories like of stuff we can't necessarily prove because I feel like there's enough that the people in power do that's we know is wrong. So and that we know they've done so. But I just think there'd be easier ways to control the population than that. I mean, you could just like quickly wipe out if they wanted to wipe out like a large portion of the population. Like there's quicker ways to do that than like COVID, which was kind of like a cold in a lot of ways.
But it's not as covert.
Yeah,
it's not as like they if they just bombed like several countries.
Yeah,
there'd be like but if this is like I never heard that theory before, but I'm just playing the devil's advocate. They're very. I don't know. I don't even like to talk about the Illuminati. It freaks me out.
Yeah, but I guess what I was thinking, like the end justifies the means. I'm thinking of two people, and one of them I actually kind of do admire in some ways, and the other one like I don't, because I'm thinking of John Brown. Like he was an abolitionist that kind of pretty much inspired the Civil War, and he believed that slavery was a sin that needed to be abolished at all costs. And he wasn't like Lincoln, like saying, okay, we need to be slow about this and we need to do it gradually. He was like, no, slavery needs to end now. I'm going to kill everybody who supports slavery. I'm going to get the slaves to revolt. I'm going to kill the slave owners. And he was like, I don't care who dies because like this cause is just, and like the end justifies the means. And I know like there was the one family of like slave, he went out and he killed like the sons with the hatchet, and he killed but like, I mean, it was for a just cause, and like I feel like his actions, like slavery wouldn't have ended without what he did. So in some ways I do think like he did the right thing, but like people could say like, oh, he killed people, like there's never reason. But I think that was kind of a just cause, that maybe violence was justified in that case, because I mean you're kind of liberating people from being owned by other people. So I think that's kind of and then I thought of another historical figure who I don't agree with too much, Mao Zedong. He believed he was changing world for the better and creating, I guess, like a workers paradise, or like I guess it would be called agrarian society, or like a lot of people died because of him. He killed a lot of people, but he thought it was for the greater good. And of course, I think there's people even now that say like, like sometimes people have to die for a nation to progress, but like in his mind that was right, because even though those were wrong things, it justified the end goal. So like, is it wrong for a greater good still, or could it be right if it's for a greater good? Or I don't know.
So, sorry. Okay, I'll go. It's fine. Okay, so like I said, like in like the world that we live in right now, to do something good, someone else has to pay a price. And technically he did something bad, but he did something good at the same time. So it's like, it's complicated to say, because I don't know. It's kind of hard to respond to that. I'm gonna leave someone else. You can cut me off on this one.
So Maoism. So there are people who will kill and die for, like the hard communism, and there are people who will kill and die against hard communism. And then like that goes into the question with the example you gave of with the slavery. It's like, is there anything such thing as a just war? Because you could say it was an act of war and it was self-defense.
Yeah.
Is there anything as you know, there are people in the world who do cling very strongly and espouse a very objective view of reality, where they have all the pieces laid out in front of them that they preach to others or tell to others, and that they have like an answer for everything. I don't, even though I've studied these perspectives in a certain sense quite strongly. You know, I think there are just wars, actually. Like in regards to the first example, like if someone if someone is attacking your family and they have no intention of stopping and they're trying to kill them, and you have a gun and you have an opportunity to save your family, I think it would be wrong to not save your family. There's so many details, though, when it comes to international policy, not necessarily the examples you gave. I don't know. But in like international dealings, bureaucracies, when it comes to these modern wars, it's almost like there's so many different sides. It's not just two sides. In regards to the example you gave, do the ends justify the means, like for the first example? I mean, I'd like to know more about what happened. I don't know that. I'm not too familiar with what you said too much. In regards to Maoism, I mean, it's just like unbridled faith in the government, like that the government will have your best interests at heart, no matter what.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there's the old adage, absolute power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And even if you're espousing a beautiful, symmetrical philosophy, political philosophy, it's like, what about human egoism? And just like the fact that, like, to get spiritual again, I guess, like hard communism, Maoism, they're very materialist philosophies, in the sense that we believe that totally and completely if we do things by this philosophy, we can create a paradise on earth. You know, and there's a sense of their own trust in their senses. It sounds like a bit redundant, but I'm using the word sense in two different ways. There's a feeling of trust in their own senses, but it's like what you see and what you touch and taste and smell, your perceptions of those senses are not always reliable. So it's like you don't always know. I don't know. I don't care if people are atheists necessarily. There are plenty of good people who are atheists. I believe in deity, but if other people disagree with me, if they're kind and respectful, I'm not going to force my point of view upon them. But when it's the opposite extreme, like with Maoism, let's for one problem, gazillions of problems within Maoism, but one problem is let's kill all the religious people, all the Buddhists, all the Christians, all the Muslims, and it's like I believe in freedom of religion, and I don't think that your ultimate question is, did the ends justify the means? It depends on the situation, I think. And it depends on what those means are, how many people they hurt, and how many people in the end are benefited, are helped, are saved, or treated with dignity. That's my basic point of view. But these are giant questions. I wasn't ready for this.
And Jelani, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do agree. It is a big question. It does, involve a lot of critical thinking. And yeah, there are certain points where you do have to make sacrifices. And yeah, it's also, I guess it's kind of bleeds to herd mentality as well, because, following something because everyone else is doing it or they believe it's right. And I think there's a psychological status. I can't remember which one, but say all four of us have like something going on, and say I'm the odd person out, and like, oh yeah, Jelani, how come you're not with us? What's going on? Like inside, I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I mean, I gotta, fit everyone else.
Like, it's hard.
I forget what
hard to go
the term is. Like when you have a certain opinion. Yeah, you don't want to be the one left out, go against the grain type of thing, and you just go with what everyone says. And I feel like, yeah, sometimes that may be the case with certain like movements, good or bad. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it all depends on what's really, I guess, going on. I'm more so talking about like in a general sense, not really in a specific way. But yeah, that's my thing. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and ironically, I guess that's how you lead a movement, is kind of by going against the grain or going against, like, if you have that, then people will follow that. Like, he's going against this. So it takes one to be like, no, this is wrong, and then others will follow along with that. And another example I thought of was in the MCU films, is a Thanos. He had this plan that he wipes out half of humanity or half of life on I think it was every planet. I don't know if it was just Earth, but like he wipes off. He was going around like the galaxy doing it, and his reason for wiping off half of the population, and he would do it randomly. Like it would wipe out. It wouldn't discriminate. It would just be random. The reason he did it was because he thought it would like stop starvation, and it would, it was overpopulated, and it would then everybody would have resources. There wouldn't be starvation. There wouldn't be, like, he thought he was doing it for a good cause, but he was wiping out half of the population to do it. So like, even though he was the villain, like he thought in his mind he was doing something for a greater good. So that was another interesting example, I thought. But I think it's true. Like, there isn't really one easy answer to this. But I think, unfortunately, that's why the people that do get popular, like pundits and everything like that, people like to follow someone they want to follow someone who's like, oh, I got all the answers, I know this, because those are usually people who are like that, and or the more like the arrogant ones, and the more like, I'm going to speak my mind like this, because people who are more intelligent and like critical thinking, questioning, and looking at things, they're not going to necessarily be strong about this or that, because there's always more questions about it, and then people want an easy answer. So then that's unfortunately why, especially like a lot of the media, like these pundits who just like, they're all like, I used to be like, I just thought like, oh, the mainstream media is bad, and then like I look at like but even in the alternative media, like then they have their own agendas, and then they leave out their stuff, and then they have their own pundits, and it's like there's no, and then they're just very opinionated about it. Like on YouTube, there's all these like very opinionated, like, and a lot of times like you look into it, like the people haven't even researched or like they really don't know what they're talking about on a lot of this stuff, but they say it's so sure and matter of factly. They get people to like reshare it, and people just like that. I know what I'm talking about, and blah blah blah. Like, it's just sad that kind of wins out. But people want to have answers. They don't want to be in question about things, and they want to have a concrete idea like this is right, this is wrong, and
In response to what you said, people want to have concrete answers. I think it's because it brings security. It brings a feeling of, all right, well, as long as I just align myself with this point of view I know is correct, I know that on some level I'll be doing something right. It's just that, I read a book a long time ago called The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts. And it even goes into like how the human nature is actually insecurity. And like even, we're looking for something stable, we're looking for some sort of permanent, some degree of stability, some degree of like ground. But even if you look at your own human mind, it's like the thoughts are constantly changing from moment to moment, and the feelings maybe are constantly changing from moment to moment, sometimes more subtly, sometimes more acutely. And like there's no secure, and even perceptions themselves, sight, sound. If you close your eyes for a moment and just listen, just block out you just focus on the sensation of hearing. It's constantly a sound arising and then falling, and then arising and then falling. It's just constant. The point of the book is that insecurity is the nature of life, and like you're never going to find security in anything. And by realizing that, you actually find security. You find a degree of peace, a degree of wisdom, a degree of presence. I think that's just what you said just made me think of that.
anyone else? Or yeah, and I guess that's why people are in echo chambers too, because it's like if they take in anything that contradicts their worldview, then it's out of that certainty. They're in that reality. Even the people who call themselves like the skeptics, or like they're not trusting the mainstream media and go into this all, like they kind of just end up following all the conspiracy stuff 100%, and they never question any of that. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm skeptical about the mainstream media, but it's like, okay, then why aren't you skeptical about what Alex Jones says or what Tim Pool says? Why do you just like take everything they say at face value and you don't research any of that? Like, I don't know, because then that's their certainty. Like we're the anti-establishment, so we're going to believe everything with this, and then they get just as rigid. I was thinking of that.
I feel like everything has to do with. I'm gonna bring back what I don't remember if it was Jonathan that said or you Sean said about like the insecurity. It was Jonathan, I remember. About the insecurity, like everyone wants to know like what or how is this so they can feel safe, and sometimes when you hear the response that you're not comfortable enough hearing it, then you are start asking all these questions to find the real answer, the answer that makes you feel or makes you think, okay, this makes sense for me, not for him, but for me it does. So that's why there's like all these like types of groups or thinkers or divided society. I don't know how to explain that part, but that's why everyone will follow someone that either thinks outside the box or thinks just like them to make them feel safe or, this sounds good. I think this is, like I said, safe, comfy. So I'm gonna
Validated,
stick
I guess.
validated. I'm gonna stick with this person, not that person, but this person, because what he's saying sounds like he can protect me. What he's saying sounds like it makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. Like there are certain groups and certain people that get together because they want to feel, yeah, validated. Like I know some people join gangs because they just don't have anywhere else, don't feel accepted, or they join it just because they have nothing to live for. And I know some people, join cults because there's just nothing left. They don't have really a purpose. So I can understand why a lot of people can follow a certain thing because of, I wouldn't say persuaded, but just trying to find their purpose in life, trying to find their reason for living. And, for better or worse, yeah, people join this cause for this reason. It's all negative. Like some people join religion, to seek guidance, to seek a higher purpose. Like, they really feel like, I don't have all the answers, stuff like that. Finding people who have similar goals, interests, and you just never know who you're gonna meet in those like situations or anything, or well, not situations, but environment.
And I just thought of this picture that there was this picture I saw, this cartoon. It had like all these punk rockers with like the mohawks, and like they all looked exactly the same. And then there was this one guy in the business suit, and they pointed at him and they're like, "Look at the conformists." Just thinking like, how then they're in their alternative, like rebelling against the mainstream, but then it's like then they kind of form their own alternative conformity. So just something.
Look at that guy who's not in our uniform.
Yeah. So it's like even when people try to individuate, it's like then they are like go against the current or go their own way. Then even then they try to find another tribe and another. So it's like you can't go out without that sense of certainty or that sense of community, I guess. And one community is important too. So I guess it makes sense. Like you kind of need a community, but should it be in rigid little boxes like that, or should it be like a more broad community where we work together? You know?
Well, hey everyone, I have to go. Like I have to wake up early, but this was definitely a really, really good session. Like I did, it got me thinking. It got me, I guess spinning the wheels in my head, and just having like-minded individuals having a certain subject. But like I said, I do have to wake up early, so I do appreciate it. Everyone have a good night. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Well, any final thoughts from
Thank you.
either of you? Like maybe what we could wrap up on, I guess. Or...
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Like
You
any final thoughts from either you, or maybe I don't know. I guess I know I said a lot just there before too. Like just maybe final thoughts or any response to that or anything.
Well, the point of all of this is I feel like everyone should just follow what they think it's right without harming anyone. And yeah, follow me on Instagram. No, kidding. Yeah, that's what I have to say. I'll leave it to you, John.
Thank you. Denise. I guess I want to second that, you know, there's an old saying in pre-Christian Europe that permeated a lot of the religions. It was the saying is, and it harm none, do as you will. So as long as you're not hurting anybody else, do what you want to do. I think it's good to help people when you can, but at least mind your business and don't hurt others. And I think that's a good philosophy to live by no matter what you believe. I also want to reiterate what Jelani says, that it's a universal principle, treat others like you want to be treated. That's the golden rule. Jesus said it, but it's also found in a lot of other religions too. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's good common sense.
Maybe all those religions going towards the same thing as all of the things that seems it's different ways. It's like manifesting different ways, but maybe it's all going towards that maybe that security, that sense. Maybe that is God. Maybe the true like security is like the God that kind of connects all of that, and it's just different forms of the same thing.
The Latin root word of the word religion itself, it comes from the Latin, so which means like to come, to and then to arrive, to come, the suffix, and then religion, it comes from, I think, regios, which means together. So religion means to come together, the root word of the word religion. And whether you are practicing religion or not, if we did all come together, sounds like hippy-dippy nonsense, but it might be true, and like really set the intention to treat each other with dignity, to make sure that everyone was safe and had their needs met, and you know, it would really take an overthrowing of the powers that be, perhaps, but I don't know. But if we all came together as one, if we all treated each other as if we were all one, you know, what would the world look like? It would look like heaven, and I think that's the purpose of religion.
Maybe we could all kind of like rule together, but not have a ruler. I guess that's what really anarchism is too. It's not no rules or chaos. It's just no rulers. So, but that's a whole other topic. And if you want to keep updated with future episodes of Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff, just follow me on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Also on social media, Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. And any thoughts about this episode or your thoughts about Universal Right or Wrong, you can email it's the Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff at gmail.com, right? Yeah, send an email there and give us your thoughts. That's about it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Oh shit, I'm a